Welcome back. You've just tuned into Women's AM. This morning I'm joined by Sister Hannah, Sister Nusrat and Sister Layla Habibti. So alhamdulillah, we've got you, Sister. MashaAllah, you are a spokesperson for Inspirited Minds. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, Inspirited Minds is a UK-based registered charity, and alhamdulillah, their aim is to help not only individuals but families and the community understand mental health, especially within the Asian and ethnic communities. Now, alhamdulillah, we have qualified counsellors, and every single one of our counsellors, have the Islamic knowledge as well, so they're able to help, you know,
our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, our brothers and sisters. I mean, especially those that are suffering from some form of mental health, that they can't really understand it, and it's all anonymous. And the good thing is that because they have that Islamic knowledge as well, they can help them in the best way possible.
So they're able to give them advice that isn't contradictory to their belief, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, yeah, because, I mean, the issue that we've found is that there is a lack of understanding within the healthcare services, like be it even the police, you know, and other counsellors and psychologists that don't really understand the ethnic issues and the different cultural issues. So
alhamdulillah, it's good to have somewhere where people can go to where they're understood, their culture, their beliefs are understood. So mashallah, jazakallah khair. We'll be going on to a little bit more on that, inshallah. So without further ado, let's go straight to her views, where today we're discussing mental health. Mental health and well-being is an issue that affects many people, both individually and collectively. However, amongst some members of society, especially in the Muslim community, there's an apprehension in the air in discussing mental health, its importance and the many ways it manifests. In turn, this makes it difficult to not only address these issues, but provide appropriate help and support to those in need. This is further exacerbated when misconceptions are founded upon the lack of awareness. So what is mental health and what do you know about it? As always, this is a live discussion with the panel, so if you have any comments or questions on mental health, please do call in. The number is on your screens now, or why not tweet us at Islam Channel #WAM15. So, Sister Layla, I'm going to come to you first. So, you know, when we refer to the term of mental health and all things surrounding it, what do we actually mean?
There is no right or wrong answer to it. I mean, mental health has become more of a what is your interpretation kind of thing when we're discussing it. The correct term is a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. And unfortunately, within the cultural community, we find that a lot of the you know, a lot of the elders tend to think that if you suffer from mental health, it's more of the severe form, you know, like things like schizophrenia, not realising that something simple such as depression or anxiety is also classed as a form of mental health.
I think we kind of tend to ignore these things as well, I think, because we feel that sometimes, you know, it's seen as a bit of a weakness if we admit that we're stressed or we're feeling some anxiety or anything like that. So sometimes it doesn't help either that we don't really discuss this. I mean, you know, we find within society that, you know, the issue of mental health and discussions that come with it are considered taboo, and, you know, they're approached with unease within the community. I mean, Sister Hannah, what can we say about this?
I think primarily it's what you were mentioning earlier in terms of the lack of awareness about the ways in which mental health manifests. I mean, we're living in a time where, you know, our lives are perceived as easier. You know, we've got technology, we've got more free time. It's not so much as perhaps how lives were before in terms of, you know, just getting a job in order to, you know, get, you know, living hand to mouth kind of scenario. But essentially this has presented a whole new set of challenges and, you know, emotional and psychological and stresses, and these aren't always recognised. I think the impact of the community and society is also very important. You know, lots of people, they don't have a satisfactory support network. We've seen the breakdown of the family unit, especially in the West, over the past few years. If people don't have anyone to confide in, then they can feel especially alone and having to deal with these problems by themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, it's quite sad that we do tend to feel like we can't actually talk about it, and therefore isolating ourselves, which makes the problem even worse. I mean, Nusrat, I know that you've got some very clear sort of points that you want to make on the fact that, why is it in the community we're not able to approach this subject?
I think partly why we're not able to approach this subject is due to, yes, lack of awareness. And as much as we do live in a society where we do find the rise, particularly in TV and film, the rise of people who are mentally ill, or at least portraying this in storylines. So we have people like Stacey Branning, Jean Slater from EastEnders. They're not portrayed in the best of light. And when you have this happening, it influences one's opinions, and upon that, discrimination occurs. Stephen Fry, who actually said for the National Voluntary Sector Campaign Time to Change, said, 1 in 4 people like me have a mental health problem. Many people have a problem with that. Because of our attitudes towards it, it makes it difficult for actually people who are sufferers and those that are around them, that are caring for them, to actually develop a kind of discourse about that and the various forms it takes place. So for a person who is schizophrenic, for example, or suffers from severe anxiety attacks, a person who's depressed, they're going to find it very difficult because of these conceptions. And then there's judgment. Particularly within the Muslim community, we find the idea that a person has to feel weak, or that a person has depression, or that they have anxiety as a weakness of iman necessarily. We tend to just relegate it to that, or it's a ruqya issue. Now, ruqya is important. Well, at least it has its benefits or its role in certain aspects. But sometimes a person does not necessarily need that. Sometimes they need someone to just talk to.
I think it's about admitting that actually, no, it's a mental health issue. It's not necessarily something that is beyond what we can do to help, subhanAllah. And it's quite surprising when you look at the statistics of people who suffer from mental health issues, that you find that women are more likely to have been treated for mental health problems than men. And it's quite sad to see, because you do find, especially within the Muslim community, that we do say that the man is the leader of the family, that he is the one who is supposed to be the pillar within the family, who holds everyone upright. And you find that, subhanAllah, it's very difficult for them to talk about what they're going through, and to talk about the fact that maybe they are facing some mental health issues, but they don't feel that they can talk about it, because it might seem as though it diminishes their manhood or their status as the leader in the family, which is very sad. I mean, what has been your experience, Sister Layla, in terms of the people that have come in to use the services?
Well, alhamdulillah, since our launch event, we've had a lot of, especially because it is an anonymous service that we offer, and for anybody that is watching that does want to contact them, you can do it via the website. But because it's anonymous, we've had a lot of brothers that have approached us as well, and that have spoken to our counsellors, because just like you said, there's always been that, I'm too scared to speak about it, or what would the family think, or what would society think, what would the community think? And that's something that needs to stop. We shouldn't worry about what Auntie Shabnam at number 41 is going to think. Do you know what I mean? It's something that we need to kind of address, and address it now.
So how do we, what are sort of the signs that we can, that would indicate a decline in mental health? What are sort of things that we should be looking out for?
There are no set signs, so to speak. I mean, it's been categorised into 2 different kind of forms. You've got neurotic and psychotic. Neurotic is more a severe form of your emotional well-being, things like depression and anxiety, and the psychotic is more of someone's own interpretation of reality. I mean, for example, as Sister Nusrat kind of brushed up upon, jinn issues does exist, but however, if you have a brother or a sister that's been a victim of abuse for X amount of years, that trauma will effectively make them have what we call a battle of the mind. So they have their own interpretation of reality. The way they do things, they'll hallucinate, they'll see things, feel things, hear things differently to other people. It's not because they have a jinn issue, which is, unfortunately, a lot of communities will say this is what they've got. No, it's because they actually are suffering and they need professional help.
It comes down to a lack of knowledge sometimes as well. I think it's being able to acknowledge that certain things, while, Allah, puts certain things in people's lives, whatever they may be, that certain things are actually to do with mental health issues rather than something else. I think one of the things that we can look out for, I was reading up on this as well, is that sometimes people's behaviours change. So if you used to enjoy doing a certain activity, if you were somebody who, who's very on top of your game, alhamdulillah, certain things kind of start to slip for a prolonged period of time. Maybe you're not interested in things that you were interested in before, or maybe you're just generally not looking after yourself anymore. So I think maybe these are some of the things that we can say, to kind of look out for. Maybe just generally feeling a little bit apathetic.
Well, That, yes, but also what we've seen as well, I've come across sisters that other people are judging. You know, this sister, she'll be someone that likes to have a good time. She's going out a lot. But, you know, she's trying to put on, because what you find is that a lot of people, especially the brothers, they'll put on their mask. You know, this is me, but this is me sad afterwards. Do you know what I mean? When they're on their own. You know, so it's hard to tell when someone is suffering from any form of mental health, because they will look just like you and me. You know, they'll be smiling, they'll be happy. So it's very hard to tell.
What exacerbates the situation, particularly in the context of brothers, is that sisters generally, more so maybe compared to brothers, tend to have that kind of ability where we can kind of talk to each other. Now, I admit that talking to people isn't particularly easy, but women generally are more receptive to that kind of talk. So I guess you would have kind of the Oprah moments where you can kind of talk. With brothers, I don't really see that many Oprah moments happening, and because they have to have this facade of actually being strong and in charge, it makes it all the more difficult, where if they do show a weakness, it's kind of looked at as something being like, well, what are you doing? You look very weak doing that. So it's harder.
Yeah, subhanAllah, it is. It's, you know, it's like, people take it as an indication of that you are weak, and no one wants to appear weak, but subhanAllah, you know, we're human beings, you know, we're not perfect, you know, we are going to have our ups and downs, and I think we have to be understanding towards each other, and it's a shame that we don't feel like we can approach maybe even family members in talking to them about whatever issues that we're going through. I mean, Hannah, mashallah, you're a young person. What do you see within, you know, the sort of reality that you live in? Do you find that, especially young people, find it very difficult to talk to family members about whatever issues that they're facing?
Yeah, I think perhaps it comes down to, you know, like you're saying, regardless of whether, you know, you specifically have a mental health problem or whether, you know, you're just coping with life's everyday stresses, you know, you can feel very isolated living, you know, with the various challenges that living in the modern era does present to you. I mean, I was also reading up on this topic, and I found a very interesting article which was saying that there are an increasing number of studies that indicate that the Muslim community generally, and young people definitely fall into that category, is facing deteriorating mental health due to the ostracization and pressure and hostility that they see in the media towards Muslims, and then, you know, from other institutions, or just discrimination that they face. And it's almost a vicious circle that when you feel like you're ostracized, you become more and more isolated and more reluctant to kind of talk about it or talk to anybody else, and just you're only worsening your own condition, therefore.
Yeah, subhanAllah, it's not easy, and I think sometimes with you know, the role of technology, like you said, you know, it makes life easier, but at the same time, it's so easy to kind of slip into the cyber world and kind of, you know, you lose track of reality in a way, and you don't tend to socialize as much as you used to. You know, the whole realm of, you know, the way that you interact with others, the way that you socialize, the way you connect has totally changed, and sometimes we think that we're connected to others, but in reality we're not. You know, we're kind of, you know, in our little corner of the room typing away, and we don't realize that it's actually sometimes doing a little more harm than good. So this is, alhamdulillah, a conversation that we're going to come back to after the break. We've had a really interesting discussion so far on this topic, but we are coming up to our next break, so stay where you are, and we'll return to this discussion shortly to get advice from our panelists. But just before all that, it's a new week, which means a new competition, so here are the details.